Welcome to the Helm Developer Weekly Call for January 24th, 2019. Hello, y'all. So the normal flow is we go through announcements, stand-ups, Helm v3 status, and then we get into the fun-filled world of discussions before we get to assignments. And so, folks, since we have a very light discussion schedule sitting here, please fill those in as we go through the other bits in this. So announcements. We have none. I guess I do have one. And oh, Michelle has one, and I'll give mine real quick before I pass it to Michelle. I'll be putting out the details. We have CVE numbers now for our two security issues. We used the open vulnerability, I'm getting the name wrong, open vulnerability project or something like that for open source, and they assigned us CVE numbers. It was actually kind of a nice, easy flow. So I will update the blog posts and mailing list to include those sometime later today. With that, Michelle.
Yeah, we're in the process of changing Helm Summit dates. So we were considering the end of March, but decided that's just not enough time to lock down a venue. We had some hiccups there, and then also give people, speakers and attendees, time to plan travel. So the tentative dates are the second week of September. That was chosen because this is Helm Summit EU, and from what I recently learned, Europeans like to take the summer off, and I love that. That's great, super healthy. But they come back generally at the end of August and the first week of September, so that's why we chose the second week of September. But yeah, so if anyone has any thoughts or conflicts and stuff, just let me know, especially core maintainers. Thanks.
All right. So the next thing up is we have our stand-ups. And Michelle, you were doing such a lovely job talking there. I'll pass it to you to start our stand-up round.
You know what? Sure. Not too much this week, actually. I've been following up on the issues and pull requests from the previous weeks of triaging. So mainly that. Thanks, Martin, for your docs pull request on how to contribute. And yeah, so if you've been pinging me about checking your pull requests, keep doing that. That's actually really helpful. And I'm trying to be more active in the Helm Dev channel. Scott, you want to
go? Yes, I'd love to. I just met with Matt Farina yesterday about some of the details I needed to help automate the Helm Hub deployments. Right now, it's a manual process, and that is confusing people. So I'm working on that. I also got set up on the CNCF service hub because I want to make a request for. A little while ago, I mentioned potentially using LastPass for our team, our wider team, so that we can more easily share credentials. There are some security concerns with using Keybase for certain kinds of things, specifically passwords that get stored on your local machine. It's just an attack footprint. So using something like that will help us. So I'll keep you all updated. No other updates for me. Sorry, I was a few minutes late, so I don't know who's gone or who hasn't. Has Josh gone?
No, I can go ahead.
Okay.
Let's see. I don't have too much to share. We had a good discussion with, I guess that was still last week. The ORUS project is going through a conversion to the Deis Labs org, so trying to help with that if I can. Also we had a talk yesterday with the Helm repos group. We need some details to be flushed out in the OCI dev mailing list, which is ongoing and ultra detailed. And Jimmy's taking the lead on that. And then there's also two other topics, which is auth and search, that we need to also, not urgently, but also discuss for Helm 3. But in the following week, I'm trying to maybe do some more work on the Helm 3 branch. I'm trying to get a hold of Adam or Mr. Butcher, Dr. Butcher. I'll pass it on to Dr. Butcher.
I've been trying to track down bug 3480, that one there. I can't reproduce it locally, but there have been a lot of people who have reported this case where it appears that the proxy between a Helm client and Tiller is getting cut off, and the symptoms seem very mysterious. It's really hard to reproduce. It's being reproduced on everything from Minikube to AKS and GKE, and the logs for Tiller don't seem to show anything. We can reproduce it with raw kubectl running Helm commands over kubectl proxy. It's just weird. It seems to have kind of popped up out of nowhere, but the frequency with which it's happening seems to be going up for people. So let me know if anybody has reproduced it and we can track that kind of thing down. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep trying. Yeah, Fisher?
I haven't been able to reproduce it. However, one scenario that might have fixed it is by running Tiller locally. I think I've heard a report here or there that said that if the IO timeout happens, if you run Tiller locally, that seems to circumvent the issue, which would indicate that it's something between the connection between Helm and Tiller itself, whether that's the kube proxy or just the network connection between the two.
And it's looking proxy related. Yeah, well, that would make sense because then you completely drop the proxy out of the equation. The question is I had been thinking was that it's probably a mismatch in libraries between the library we compiled into Helm and the library that was running on whatever version of Kubernetes. So the command that you had dropped in there would have tested that very conveniently. What surprised me was because I don't know if you saw that, but I just basically reposted and asked people to do what you'd asked them to do like 4 months ago. And someone responded right away and was seeing the exact same problem happen with kubectl port forwarding, which really got confusing because the most likely culprit, which would have been a protocol mismatch, is not the case. So it looks like either Tiller is hanging, or more specifically gRPC in Tiller is hanging up unexpectedly, like midway through the data stream and silently doing that with no log entries, or there's a deeper issue with kube proxy that because we use it so heavily, we're the first ones to notice, or at least systematically notice.
Kube proxy does have some
I'm going to try and hunt that down.
Yeah, kube proxy does have some ongoing issues that pop up from time to time. Others have noted. I don't know how many of them have been fixed.
Yeah, I know even as far back as Austin, Scott and I, in fact, at Austin, were having conversation about some of the odd cases that seem to crop up there with memory issues causing the proxy to get killed. But what we did in that particular area was the error was the proxy itself getting killed. It was like the connection, just one particular connection dropped and another Helm command opened a new connection. And anyway, so I'll keep tracking that down. We have a couple open PRs on Helm 3, but since Adam's on vacation this week, everything's gotten a little bit slowed down. So I imagine he gets back Friday, so I imagine that'll pick up Friday or Monday of next week, and we'll be kind of off on that. That's it for me, and I will hand it off to another Matt. How about?
Now, which Matt will take it? Or did you mention
I think he said Fisher as his audio was cutting in and out.
Okay.
It was one of the ones that started with an F.
Okay. It has an F, and somewhere in the last name is an R and an yeah. So yesterday, or I mean not yesterday, this last week, what I've been doing basically is helping out with the Helm 3 repository discussions as well, just mostly contributing there. For the most part, I've been working on orthogonal stuff inside the Azure org, just kind of doing some consulting work and helping out there. So I haven't necessarily been helping out on Helm, but what I want to do is once I tie off this last bit with the consulting work, I want to help out with Helm 3 and I want to help out with kind of like offloading some of the stuff that Adam has. So I'm going to try and assist with the PR queue and stuff like that so we can start trying to move those discussions forward. As well with the Helm 3 repository stuff, just trying to
help through with like sherpaing stuff going through the community and reviewing documentation. I think Farina, you and I also have some stuff to talk about with the documentation from the OCI meeting that we had yesterday, or at least from the repository meeting yesterday. So there's that as well. Go Nikhil.
Hey guys, for me it's mostly been following up with comments on issues and a couple of PRs that I had started taking a look at when I was issue Sherpa the prior week. Not much else from that. Closed out a couple of issues and that felt good. But we'll continue sort of doing that. Hope to keep doing that this week as well. Not much else going on, so I will pass it on to Farina.
Okay, I've done a few things. One is with Helm in the Helm hub, or I should say the hub. We are looking at how do we scale the hub, both in terms of number of charts on it and user experience and orgs. The CNCF has talked to us about maybe getting contractors to help get on this more quickly. And so we're going to look into that kind of scope. Right now, all of the charts that it knows about are sent to the browser every time. That's going to cause problems as more charts in there. We're up to about 500. Imagine this at a few thousand. What happens? Or maybe you get 100 orgs up there. That namespacing doesn't scale in our charts page. So we need to go clean some of this up. And so we're looking at how do we do that. Along the same lines, how do we integrate Helm search into it? So right now you search stable out of the box. Would be nice if you could search the Helm hub out of the box. With the aggregated setup. So we're looking at how do we enable the hub to power this and scale and all of those things. And so I'm tasked with going off and trying to write some scope and things like that and then meeting with the CNCF on it. So there's that. Then there's the OCI side of things, where again, I think Josh covered it. We need to deal with pushing and pulling in the user experience around that. And then after that, we're going to look at search, and then after that, we're going to look at auth. Search is our next big thing we need to work out, and organically that showed up in the OCI conversations, because you don't want to search a registry and get images and Helm and whoever knows what else in our search results. We need to be able to intelligently filter this down and handle that. And so that's the kind of thing we're looking for. How do we enable that? Everyone's got to solve it, so now's a good time. So those are some of the areas that I've been tackling this week. I think I have a to-do that I haven't done yet to meet with Chris over on CNAB at Docker and some other folks to try to work out what do the annotations look like, because OCI has standard annotation namings, and we've got to do something around that as well. But that's where I'm at. And so I will pass it off to Adnan. Are you on?
I am. I don't have much to report though, other than kind of looking at a few issues and PRs in Monocular, and had a chat this morning with Martin about the library charts. Yep, that's all I have. Who hasn't gone, or is that all of us?
I think Martin is the one on the list that we wanted to go next.
Aha, Martin.
That captures it.
Yeah, I put him on there. I feel like Martin's doing a lot. I'm going to throw that out.
No reason to argue. He was on there last week. Okay.
This is kind of the guy that comes to the party. No one knows who he is, and he's still there 6 months later. So yeah. So what did I get to this week? So I was issue Sherpa, which was great fun. So I was working through them, closed a few issues, bounced a lot off to Matt Farina, to Matt Fisher, and to Josh. So thank you loads for that. Sorry if I'm jumping them over across, but it's great you've jumped in and put tags and add comments that were filled in the gaps for me. A couple of PRs closed out, so thanks to the people who reviewed them and closed them out, like Michelle, Josh, and Nick. And as Adnan said, I started looking at the V3 features. Started looking on Friday, and Matt Farina gave me a good heads up, and then said go over and talk to Adnan. So only got back to it today, unfortunately. So hopefully drive ahead tomorrow or Monday, which maybe get a WIP PR in, because there'll be docs and there'll be tests around that. So I'll try and get that off the ground and get that going. And apart from that, I think that's about it. So whoever's next, or is that it?
I think that's it. Did we miss anybody? No, fantastic. Next up, we normally have the Helm v3 status. Adam usually gives this. I don't know if there's somebody else who's up to speed on the overall picture who can give it, or if we should skip it this week.
Well, let's skip it. Brian's not here either, unless.
Yeah, sure. Then we can move on to the discussion. And we have 3 discussion points, and we got about 10 minutes. So let's try and rock through some of these. The first one is, and I'll read this, it's a nice long sentence. Could we recap our approach to how we handle V2 fixes while the V3 branch is not yet accepting fixes? Or maybe it is accepting them. Is there a list of fixes waiting to be merged? Is there a tag that we should apply to V2 fixes that need to be ported across later? Something like that. How do we want to handle this? Anybody want to jump in?
I can say that I noticed the problem while I was working on V3 a week ago and on the Helm template stuff, and there had been enough changes between the two that it was actually really hard to figure out what to do there. I think Adam decided we could accept changes into Helm 3 with the caveat that some of them, if they were going to be irrelevant, might just get denied or delayed. But I think we're kind of at the point where it makes sense, particularly against anything that's ported over to the action package now.
Yeah, I'm going to try. I'm going to just state what our policy is. So if a policy is that, which is great, I think if it is open, then we should just state that. If you're doing a fix to V2, you need to put a patch into V3 as well, which may or may not go somewhere, and that should be a policy. Great, fantastic. But we should state that. So I don't think before it was. I think we said we'll look at it on an individual basis and we'll see, which of course doesn't help us.
Yeah. Whoever suggested adding a label, that's a great idea, because that would at least make it evident at the very top layer that something needed to be done for V3.
Yeah, we know our technical debt list basically. We need to track it. That's the most important thing, and we know what's there, even if we haven't done it yet.
Should we make a label that says needs V3 fix, and we can attach it to any V2 one, and then we have the ability to filter and track that?
Yeah,
that's a great start.
And then just like, where should we, this is a good question. We should post this somewhere on our repo around like clarifying what Helm 2 and Helm 3 patches and PRs get merged. So where should we do that?
Contributor pages.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I'll raise a PR to add that to the contributor page one.
Thanks. That'd be great.
Okay, I'm adding a label now. Needs V3 fix. It is there for people to use.
Magic.
Oh man, we could even create a GitHub board for V3 fixes at some point, but we're not that sophisticated yet.
Hey, Michelle, thanks for volunteering. All right, so on to the next thing. What is Helm support for CRDs? Can it handle large CRDs? There's an open issue. I know somebody a few months ago had something going on where they were going to propose something and a way to handle it, and Adam had some notes and things like that he was going to pull into those discussions. What's going on with that? Do we need to punt this to next week with Adam?
I think we do. I remember this conversation, but I completely forgot all the context, so I'm going to need to dig as well.
Yeah, that'd be great, because it's just some things that have come in from the community and come in from groups and stuff about it. So I suppose it's a kind of a thing that's out there basically.
Okay. Then the other item we have is Chart Museum plus Monocular and Helm v3. Who added this? Does somebody want to add more detail?
Sorry. Yeah, I added it. We can definitely talk about this in several months. But Matt Butcher brought up in Keybase yesterday about Google Summer of Code projects. And I'm wondering if, so Monocular is kind of a different story, but Chart Museum, should we just leave it as the default repo v1 tool and move and push people towards distribution, or should Chart Museum continue to always work for Helm repo stuff? And that kind of falls into Monocular too, because Monocular is designed to work with v1 repos, and I know there's a tool called like Portainer, there's some other ones, but I don't think there's actually something that isn't about storage, but just discovery for Docker. I could be wrong.
So I'll tell you a little more. So for Helm v3 on the Monocular side, our plan is Monocular is the tool we need to power the hub. And so if we change to a different setup, Monocular will incorporate that so we can continue working with that because it's designed to power the hub now rather than just v1 repositories. So that's its scope. And so I expect it to add image or repository support in order to accommodate those things.
Yeah, I guess my response to that would be, is there already a tool for the Docker ecosystem that does the cross-host discovery instead of us building this custom and spending a bunch of time?
Actually, building this custom is probably okay for us. I'm sorry, real quick, just because this is about our experience for the hub, right? We want to craft and control the hub experience. And so that's the important thing here. I don't know that there is a cross thing for Docker images and those kinds of things. And if there is, we probably want to look into using it. But our goal is to craft and control the experience for the hub. And so I don't expect us to walk away from that.
Yeah, I haven't seen any kind of just discovery sites. You usually see them kind of paired with a registry. So something like Harbor comes to mind, but I haven't seen anything that just does the discovery part. And Monocular, to be honest, may actually need to support both V1 and V2 registries for some time anyway. So I feel like it probably makes sense to continue working on that base.
Okay, so definitely forward with Monocular then, unless something comes up. But Chart Museum, I mean, I don't want to try to recreate distribution unless it's just a distribution front end, at which point maybe Harbor is actually the right project to use. So I'm trying to take myself out of the equation. So
maybe, yeah, I don't know, because as Matt Farina said, we want to kind of control the experience of the hub. And if the API, I don't know that the distribution API is necessarily difficult just for kind of read-only querying. Harbor does a lot of extra stuff like being able to manage repositories and create and push to things, which Monocular won't need to have. So if there's a way we can use a limited set of Harbor's functionality, that might be interesting, but it might just be simple enough to just use the distribution API directly and grab information from that.
Yeah, so like Monocular uses cron jobs today to update its sync, right? I think it's using cron jobs.
Yeah.
And so, right, we'll probably just have a separate cron job that runs for things that are like that knows how to query those APIs, right? And then it'll be able to update the cache based on that. And that's the kind of thing. Now, if there's something in Harbor that would let us query to build that tool on to sync to our database, because our cache is custom logic to do that, we might be able to leverage those packages. But again, it's still about, feeding our database to control the experience.
That makes sense to me, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we can definitely visit this again in a few months. I didn't know if we should invest a Google Summer of Code project for Chart Museum, unless it has to do with like migration stuff. That's all I have.
Is there a deadline for when we need to propose projects for the Google Summer of Code?
It was in Keybase. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, if you can find it, can you dump it into the document here?
Mm-hmm.
So we have 2 minutes left, and we need some people, some suckers for next week. We need an issue Sherpa, notes, and a moderator. Do we have anybody who wants to do this?
I want to do notes. I haven't done notes in a long time.
Issue Sherpa or moderator?
I can moderate for next week.
Issue Sherpa.
I've been looking into stuff. I can continue looking into issues as well this week. Are we officially doing 2 issue Sherpas a week? Since the last couple of weeks we did 2, or are we back to 1? Do you know? I wasn't sure if that was a thing we were actively trying.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to keep doing 2. We still have more pull requests coming in, so let's just do 2. I don't mind being the second one. I'm still following up on my other ones, so that's why I didn't jump up to volunteer, but I'm happy to be the second one.
Okay, thanks, Michelle.
Fantastic. Look at that. And so with that, we're going to end on time this week. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you here next week. Same time, same channel.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. See ya. Oh, thanks, everyone.